right, on the agenda, we have a roll call.
Here, Councilor Carson.
Thank you, Council Carson. Ms. Sean?
All council members are present. A quorum has been declared with Councillor Carson appearing via Zoom and Councillor Vigil previously requesting to be excused.
And we're happy to say that Councilor Vigil is excused because he welcomed a brand new baby today. All righty. So that brings us to the next item. We have the agenda approval. Councilor Griego.
I'll go ahead and make the motion. We approve the agenda as presented and also to excuse Counselor Vigil.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please start voting, please.
Yes, Councilor Carson.
Ms. Sean?
And the motion carried unanimously.
Okay, good. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. We have citizen comments. This is the portion of the agenda where we ask those who've already turned in their comment cards to come up to the podium. We will ask that you keep your comments to within 3 minutes. If you're still talking within 3 minutes, I would politely ask you to end your conversation at that time. Ms. Ruthie Brown.
Good evening, Ruthie Brown. I live at 711 State Avenue. You know, I have no problems with you giving $10,000 to a readiness work program, whatever you want to call it. But when you compare it to prisoners picking up trash, or we can't have prisoners picking up trash, or we can't have people picking up trash because it reminds them of prisoners picking up trash, I think, what the heck have I been doing for 20 years? And my friend Bonnie's here and she's helped me in Mom's Garden all summer long, and we pick up trash almost every single damn day. When I worked with the kids from Blue Peaks, our Operation Pride Gang Club, we swept parking lots and picked up trash. You know, instead of saying you can't do that, how about you create a little bit of pride and say, hey, let's get this area cleaned up today. If someone learned and someone worked and someone knew how to do flower bed work, they'd be charging $20, $25, $30 an hour in no time at all. So maybe you're missing the boat there. But the other thing I want to know is how many of you have all been downtown to First Fridays? Have you seen has everyone been down there? You know, when you say there's no South Side, Charlie, you've said there's no South Side anymore. Can you tell me how many of you visited ever from March 1st to June 19th with any of the businesses on the lower downtown Alamosa? As far as I know, unless I'm talking to the wrong people, at Atencio's, the gas station, the laundromat, Virginia's, Julian, myself, no one has ever come to the South Side to see how we fared. And that is the difference between downtown and the South Side. And the city applying for a $1.2 million grant to beautify Hunt Avenue and have a perfect opportunity to do something on State Avenue. You had the streets torn up, you had the sidewalks torn up. What a perfect opportunity to beautify the gateway from the airport. And I really think the city missed the boat, and you missed the boat. And I consider it, not me personally, but I consider it an insult that Hunt Avenue is more important than State Avenue. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any other comment cards, so I'll turn it back over to staff for follow-up.
Before that, did we want to see if anyone is online other than Counselor Carson?
Yes, if we could, I don't see anyone else, but if we can just double check. I know Mr. Woods is with the citizen, so I don't
Okay.
see anyone else.
No, I don't have any follow-up. Ms. Brown was just sharing her opinions on some of the projects.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the next item on the agenda. We have consent calendar A. Counselor Daniel,
Mayor, I move that we approve consent calendar A.
Second,
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, please start voting.
Carson, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Shine?
The motion carried unanimously, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. The next item, we have a presentation from an outside agency, an update on the mobile home park. I believe it's Ms. Margaris.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
I want to take 1 second to brag on Dawn a little bit. She has really jumped in, when the first mobile home was, we received notice that someone was looking to purchase that. City has no knowledge of technical expertise of what needs to go on, but Dawn, with her heart and background in housing, quickly put herself on a quick learning curve too, because some of the state legislation is fairly new, was able to connect with some resources to further help her as well from a legal counsel perspective, and has a great board to help, let her work into this. But her work with residents now also with the second mobile home and her heart and passion of what these 2 mobile homes mean for our community is enormous. And so I wanted to have her come so she can give a quick update on the status of both. And then I can also jump in a little bit as one of them moves forward. And who knows with the second one, as that goes through court, if there's a role the city can play or not play. So nothing to vote on tonight, but it's just to make sure you understand what's going on with the 2 mobile home parks, and kind of where we are from a city perspective too. So Dawn.
Thank you, Heather. So like Heather said, in April of 2021, we got notice that the Town and Country Mobile Home Park was being sold. The new Mobile Home Park Act of 2020 gives tenants 90 days to create a cooperative and make an offer to purchase a park, and a seller has to negotiate. They don't have to accept, but they at least have to negotiate that offer with residents. In the first 30 days of that 90-day time period, mobile home park owners are not allowed to talk with residents to try to convince them to go in either direction. But organizations like the Housing Coalition are allowed. We are allowed to help them navigate through the system. I knew nothing about Mobile Home Park Act 2020 at that time, but had so many different organizations reach out to us and say they need help. Residents reaching out, saying they need help. We quickly started learning and reaching out, like Heather said. We started gathering all the residents and holding meetings. And about 2 weeks after the first letter went out, we were told that the park owner had went around and had a letter that said, I do not have $1.9 million and will not be purchasing this park, and had everybody in the park sign it. And he closed in less than 30 days. The next step was to file a lawsuit or an investigation with the new state mobile home park oversight program team. And we have been going through that investigation process now for over a year. In May of this year, the tenants won their investigation, won a substantial cash payout, and the seller filed an appeal. So now it has to go in front of an actual judge instead of just the oversight team. And we are starting that process over again. We had very strong evidence. The tenants did a really good job at keeping every piece of paper that came to them. And the new buyer has done a really good job at working with the Housing Coalition to make this park comply with Colorado law the best he can as the new owner. We've worked with them on leases, rules and regulations. However, there's still things we can't do, like stop rent increases more than once a year. He's already raised the rents within days of purchasing the park. He gave them notice he was raising rents the first time. He quit allowing water and trash to be included in rent. So many park residents almost doubled their monthly cost to live in that park. And we are in the understanding he's about to give that notice again September 1st. So it's about to go up again. And there will be probably about 60% of the residents in that park that will no longer be able to afford rent, or if they're retired, if they haven't already, will have to go back to work just to afford their lot rent payment because they own their own homes. That park has lost almost all of their renters that the park owned the homes. They have all moved on, decided they did not want to deal with the situation going on there. We were just coming to the point where we felt we were ready to almost kind of step away from the Town and Country Park and just kind of assist them through the appeal, but not have to be a big feature in their daily lives. When we received notice in July that the Century Mobile Home Park is also up for sale and has an offer, $6.9 million in cash. We started trying to mobilize right away, but a lot of my team was either on vacation or getting ready to go on vacation, and they only have 90 days. So we were getting concerned. Thankfully, on August 3rd, the state made the seller reissue all their letters, which started the 90-day count over again. We held a meeting last week for residents that we anticipated somewhere around 30 or 40 people to show up. I counted a little over 120. I've had others tell me that the final count was probably closer to 170. There's 184 spaces in Mobile Century. 104 of them are resident owned, 44 of them are rented, and the remaining 30 odd lots are vacant. To have over 170 people show up meant these residents are very concerned for their future and their housing stability. If the housing study taught us anything, it's that mobile home parks are a naturally affordable place for residents, for immigrants, for those in the justice system, for those on Social Security, and for those that often get left behind by the law to live. We want to save this park the best we can, and we're on the clock. We're now 2.5 weeks into the clock, and the residents are with us. They are ready to see what can happen. These residents have 3 options. They can become what's called a resident-owned community, and that's where they band together, set up a co-op, kind of set up their own business, and they buy the park as the residents. They hire management, hire maintenance, do all of that on their own. They can become what's called a park model, PARC. And that one is where they work with a nonprofit, and the nonprofit works side by side with them, where they still have a lot of the say, but the nonprofit actually purchases the park. And we use, or the nonprofit, not necessarily the housing coalition, uses the vacant lots to start bringing in newer, fresher, more stabilized housing, typically on permanent foundations, so they can't be moved in the future. And they start replacing their rental homes and eventually, hopefully, start helping the tenants who own their homes replace the older homes that can no longer be moved with newer homes that would give them another 30 to 50 years of lifespan. The last opportunity is that they really don't want to be involved either way, but they also don't want to see it sold to someone that they don't know what's going to happen. In this case, they have the choice to either assign their rights to purchase to a nonprofit or to a government entity. The government entity really is the best way for them to go, because the Mobile Home Park Act just got updated, and effective October 1st, which is in our 90-day period, if they give their right to purchase to a government entity, then a right of first refusal clause goes into effect. So if the seller decides not to sell to us and goes with his first option, that buyer now has to give the city or the county or whatever government entity is given that right the right of first refusal if they decide not to make it a park in the future, or they decide to sell it in the future, which brings this opportunity back around again. But with a whole different set of rules that are more favorable to the tenants. With that right of first refusal, or with that right going to the city or the county, the entity doesn't actually have to purchase the park. They just get the right to, and they can then assign that right or partner with somebody else that's actually going to take over ownership and management, which is kind of the ideal idea of what the legislation is hoping will happen. They're not really saying we want a bunch of cities or counties to own parks. They're just wanting to give better rights to the residents within the park. At this point, we don't know which route the residents want to take. We gave them 2 hours of information last week, along with a giant packet to take home and kind of review. And we're having another meeting with them next Thursday at Boyd School at 6 p.m. And at that point, we are going to ask them to make their first vote of what route they want to know. So the Housing Coalition, SLV AHEC, and SLV IRC can kind of have an idea of which route to start really focusing on. Although we won't stop focusing on the other options, because if something happens and one of those needs to take place, we still want to have those in place. We do have 75% of the funding already in place to meet the $6.9 million purchase price. We will still need to come up with about 2 million of that 6.9. The First Southwest Bank has agreed on a 2% interest, 30-year mortgage, which pencils out currently. So there's a few things that we have discussed with your staff and with our staff and all the parties involved, is we are going to hunt grants, and we're going to hunt them quickly. We're going to reach out to some of our big funders like Colorado Health Foundation. We wanted to bring this to the city's attention so that you guys can start having that conversation, because if the residents decide they want to go with the government entity option, so they have that right of first refusal in the future, we need to kind of start walking through those processes quickly, because 90 days will go fast. And then if they ask the Housing Coalition to purchase, we're trying to be prepared for that as well. And I already have my board looking into those options and talking that through as well. And then I'll let Heather kind of talk you through what other options the city might have.
Don also brought together a group of individuals, as well as some individuals who were involved in efforts in Durango at trying to save some mobile home parks. And I had to leave the meeting early, and so I probably still need to get caught up at some point. But part of what they talked about a little bit was, for some of this, because everything does move so quickly, is the need to have a quick infusion of some cash that then can get paid back. And so I don't know all the ins and outs and the devil's in the details, but it sounds like the city of Durango was able to provide a little bit of that funding, then get paid back at 0% interest type of situation.
Correct. So
And-
Durango provided a short-term, like 12-month loan.
Yep.
And then when the grants finally came through, the grants paid that loan back off.
So from a city perspective, what I shared is, one, I would obviously have to talk to council, but you are all aware of the importance of maintaining and keeping our mobile home parks as per the housing study, plus just from a common sense perspective, if we can keep people out of homelessness, that's much better for our community for a lot of different reasons than trying to get them out of homelessness. So there's different ways we can partner. So the first one, and I don't know all the ins and outs, is if they want to give it to the city, what does that mean? All of that kind of stuff. So we could be willing to explore those conversations. We don't want to own it and operate it, but we need partners and that kind of thing. But I think we've got strong, solid foundations of partnerships in this area. The other is from an infrastructure. So this is more after the fact, if there needs to be improvements from our enterprise perspective with water and sewer and things like that, there could be some possibilities there. Again, the devil's in the details of what we're talking about. But then more importantly is the potential infusion of some large amount of cash. And so, you might have remember a little bit when we have our 10-year plan and you wanted us to move some of those projects up. So we're eating that fund balance sooner because after 10 years, it gets down here, but we're still kind of up here. We can't move everything because some of that's vehicles and there's still more life in them and that kind of stuff. But the graph is looking very similar this year. And so we have $1 million to $2 million of cash that as long as it's paid back within a year, maybe a year and a half, we can do it at no interest, but we need some pretty strong guarantees. And so we would need to make sure that some of these funders, that it's a matter of them just going through their process and it's a pretty much done deal because we have to get it paid back. We don't have the ability to give money from our general fund without cutting services type of situation. So again, it's nothing you need to vote on tonight, but as Dawn indicated, this moves quickly. And one, I wanted to make sure you knew these are our residents and I wanted you to understand what they're going through. They're living in a lot of fear right now. I think Dawn didn't get into it, but there's, a lot of allegations of how they're being treated by management and things like that. We have our police working closely with them. There's some things they can't do that are civil matters, but if there's something we can do that's criminal, we want to make sure we're there to support these residents. But you need to be aware of that in case you get calls as well of what's going on. And then if this moves quickly and they need us to play a role, I wanted at least some of this information to be on your radar. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it well.
Is there
Is there-
any questions?
Questions for me?
Okay, Council Griego,
Okay, I'll go ahead and start.
and then Councilor Daniel.
There's rumor out there that the same person that was purchasing Town and Country is trying to purchase this one. Is that true or not?
I don't believe that's true. The gentleman who purchased Town and Country is working with us regularly. I'm in contact with him every week. And I really felt if he would have been the buyer, we would have been made aware. And the seller has asked the state not to share the information of who the buyer is, which is what scares me the most in this situation. Because the gentleman who bought Town and Country was not afraid to tell us he was buying Town and Country and that he was wanting to keep it a park. So we kind of had some ground to move forward with. This buyer does not want us to know who he is or who they are. The only thing the residents have going for them in that situation is if he decides he doesn't want it a park, he has to give them 12 months notice to move their homes. However, the average home age is 1977, and out of 180 some houses, or 148 houses, maybe 20% of them actually legally can be moved out of the park unless they're going into another park. So it will become a whole different emergency at that point if he gives that notice.
And that was gonna be my second question, because there's a large number of those. Is it pre-76 or something like that?
So
That you can't move?
it's pre-76 if it's a double wide. It's 15 years if it's a single wide. If it's going on land, if it's going into another mobile home park, there's not an age difference. It just has to be suitable for moving. And some of them have been off tires for so long, they may not be able to be moved just because of how long they've been in the park.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, gosh, thank you, Dawn. Really appreciate that. So so the timeline total is 90 days, started at the beginning of August. Residents are going to have a kind of like maybe like a straw vote is what you would call it next Thursday. And so if there is this interest in looking at a government entity or whatever they are thinking, like a majority kind of, even though it's not finalized or anything like that, we'll know by next Thursday.
Yes, we will make sure your staff knows that right
Okay.
away. Your staff did attend the last one. So if they attend again, they'll know. If not, I will let them know first thing Friday morning. The other piece to that is once they make an offer, if their offer is accepted, we get another 90 days from there to actually finalize the purchase. We just have to be in those negotiating options and have our funding secured in that first 90 days.
So is there anything, so in this like kind of interim time, is there support we could provide the residents in any way, like just to make sure that they know that this is a free choice for them? You know what I mean? Like that they really, is there anything the city can do or things that you would think we could assist with at this point, just to help people know that they have these options, or you feel like they're doing well? I just want to make sure they know that they're important.
I think the purpose of tonight's meeting is so that if you start getting those calls, you can remind them they don't need to move. There is a great team working on this and they need to attend the meetings when they get those flyers. Like I said, it will be the 25th at 6 p.m. at the Boyd School Gymnasium. And to, just let them know that there's a support system that meant all the world to the town and country residents, even though it didn't go their way and they weren't able to purchase the park because of how it went. Just knowing they hadn't been forgotten and there was someone to walk them through the steps has been huge. We have 4 nonprofits currently working with them in 3 different languages. So we are doing everything until they make the vote. We are doing everything that we can as a team, but it's just reaching out, or if they reach out to you, to make sure you tell them, what's going on. You're working with the team that's helping them, and they don't need to move at this time because they are hearing rumors that they have to be out by September 1st. And that is not true. Another article is going to go in the paper to let them know that again, but just reminding them they do not need to move unless they have an actual court order for an eviction or something like that. At this time, they do not need to move.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'll go to Councilor Carson to see if you have any questions before I ask the final question. Because I don't see any other lights on. Councilor Carson, I can't
No,
see
I'd
if you
just
have
like
your
to
hand
say-
up or not. Okay.
I'd just like to say thank you to Dawn. Yeah, just keep fighting that good fight and let us know as soon as you know something. I know you and Heather are working closely, but that is a scary situation. So, and again, thank you for putting that article out, because I've had people ask, they didn't necessarily say they were going to move, but they said they had heard rumors as well. So thank you for that, putting that information out there as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grego.
I had one more. I know this is private property, and Heather, you had mentioned that there's only certain things that we can do. But I've been getting calls that they're having problems with their sewers and are flooding. And I told them, you need to probably get hold of the owner and see what they can do. But they said that the management part is not paying attention to them, and there's a lot of problems there with a lot of people. They keep calling me, and I said, well, this is private property. It's a hard thing for us to even get involved, but.
It is. And at this point, we can't really get involved with the sewer piece. The tenants did make us very well aware that it's backing up into their yards, it's backing up into their homes. It's causing damage in their homes, and it's not their fault, but they're not doing anything. We did let the mobile home park oversight program team know that management has been made aware of this issue and is not correcting it, because there are habitability laws out there that says the park owner has to be doing something. The Valley Courier has been going around, and so has Kaiser Permanente, and interviewing the residents in the park to find out exactly what that full story is, because we just kind of got pieces of it at the meeting the other night. But it definitely has made it onto our radar that whoever purchases the park will have to quickly get into gear to figure out the sewer, which is where Heather mentioned maybe some infrastructure help, because it definitely sounds like at least one sewer line. Most of it I'm hearing is maybe just on one row, but at least one of those sewer lines may need to be replaced, and replaced quickly once new ownership takes effect. The state is investigating it as well. And if they find that the park owner is not fixing things, they actually could put like some type of injunction in and stop the sale altogether until the park owner does his responsibility. But we're not at that point yet. That investigation hasn't gotten far enough into it.
Okay. And Don, I have a couple of questions. You talked about the challenge that a lot of the people may have if they try to move their units. Can you share with council for those who might be able to relocate, what the costs normally run?
Can run up to $10,000 per home. And that's to move it to vacant land. Because they have to pay like connection fees. If their land doesn't have sewer system, like septic systems or electricity, that could be another 50,000 just to get that on the land they may already own. So if they're trying to move it to land, they could be looking at another $50,000 to $75,000 just to prep their land in order to put their home on there. If they're moving it into another park, we're being told $5,000 just to move it from one park to another, just even across town, because it takes flaggers and trucks and the police department and so many things to get such a big vehicle through a city. Sometimes electrical lines have to be taken down and it can be quite a costly process. So really the best opportunity is to save this park for these residents.
Right, and also correct me if I'm wrong, the few parks that we do have in the community, the capacity is not there to take on the volume that will come from this park. If you could clarify if I'm
That is correct.
making a
So
correct statement.
this is our largest park in the county. We know of a few parks that have 1 or 2, maybe 3 spaces. Town and Country probably has maybe 10 or 15 spaces. However, it would double the cost of the tenant to move into that park just because the costs have already increased over there so drastically. The other park we were talking to had 3. They called us back yesterday and told us they now have an offer on their park as well. So they don't know if they'll be accepting any homes until they see where that goes. The next biggest park would be either Town and Country or Wagon Wheel. Wagon Wheel, we are hearing today, may also be up for sale or have a buyer. So at this point, most of these tenants would probably have to leave Alamosa to find a place to put their home.
Okay, and then just want to clarify one other thing too. You had mentioned in your opening comments that of the $6.9 million, funding is available. There are either there's access to funding up to 75%.
First Southwest Bank is a CDFI bank, so they are obligated to put money into affordable housing, and mobile home parks is one of the things they focus on. They have ran the initial numbers and they feel they could do a 2% 30-year loan on 75% of the purchase price, but we would have to come up preferably with grants to make it pencil and not be a cost burden to the buyer. With the 2 to 2.5 million, depending on what the closing cost and the due diligence ends up costing.
Okay, and if a loan was secured with the grants and the funding that you receive, how would it be repaid and who would be responsible for making those repayment efforts?
So it'd be repaid through the lot rent. And so whoever purchased the park would collect the lot rent and make those monthly payments on those loans through the lot rent. At the 75%, if the rest could come in grants of some sort, or at some point be grants, lot rent would not have to be increased. If the other 25% had to also come in as low interest loans, lot rent would have to be increased. That is why we would be applying for grants, because we're trying to keep the lot rents where they're at.
And if we keep the lot rents where they're at, it means that we keep affordable housing in our community.
Correct. 884 spaces worth.
Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay. That's it. Thank you so very much. Appreciate you sharing that information with us.
Thank you, you guys. Have a great evening.
You too. Okay, that brings us to the next item on our agenda under business brought forward by city staff. Discussion of the 2022 council committee assignments.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
With the resignation of Kyle Woodward and the appointment of Don Krebs, we were reviewing the committees that Kyle had sat on. And there are 2 that do not work for Councilwoman Krebs' timeframe, and they are both alternates. The first one is the Airport Advisory Board, meets the first Monday of every other month at 9:30 a.m. And the second one, also as an alternate, is the Main Street Advisory Committee. That meets the 3rd Tuesday of every month at 8 a.m. So as council knows, when you have your retreat in February, that's usually when we change any committee assignments and all of that. So we don't have long to go, which I hate to say. But it's not that far away, but there may be a time that the main representative for either airport or Main Street is not able to make it. So having an alternate might be worthwhile. With that, I will open it up. I also believe that there's been conversations with Counselor Vijo and Krebs of changing the responsibility for the library board. So I guess, is
Okay.
anyone interested in being the alternate for one of those two committees?
I can be the alternate for the Main Street Advisory. I can't do the airport. That time would not work for me, but the other one could if Counselor Hensley can't attend.
Okay. And airport. Okay. What I had down is the first Monday of every other month at 9:30. What we can do is contact them and make sure they add you to their list and get you caught up. Correct. And Mayor, that's all I have
Okay.
for that item.
All right, good. Thank you, council members, for stepping up and helping out. Really appreciate that. Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? Okay. Well, any committee reports? Ms. Brooks, are you going to cover the information that for the Parks and Recs in your report meeting we had?
I was gonna have Andy provide an update on the bridge, but he could also cover some,
Yeah, we're having
Other
just point out
stuff
a
on
few
the-
highlights, yeah.
okay.
Okay, all right, good deal. Yeah, but right now, so, all right, so no committee reports. I will say we did have a Parks and Rec meeting. It was a great meeting. We had Aaron Meeks from Senator Bennett office come to the meeting to talk about the $4.7 million grant that we got for the pedestrian bridge. We toasted with faux champagne. It wasn't real, but it looked real. It tastes good, and celebrated. It was a really great time, and we gave Andy and John credit for the hard work and dedication that they put into filling out that grant. I also had an opportunity to meet with the Parks and Rec team, and we went on a bike ride with the people of the board from GoCo. That was real fun. The GoCo people really enjoyed that. I don't want to take away from Andy's presentation, but a lot of them they were really thankful for the opportunity. And they also took them to the site where the bridge is going to be as well. And he and John took a real nice photo shot of holding up the Valley Courier with the article on the front page. So really impressed with the rec board. Also, there's a lot of things that's going on. And I just want to put in a appeal out to the people out there who are going out there and vandalizing our restrooms and vandalizing the park area. Please stop destroying what we're investing our money and resources in. Parks and Recs, they have to continue to go out there, repair, fix broken restroom items. And right now is a time for that to stop. And any residents out there, if you see anyone who's violating our property, please bring it to the police department's attention so that we could stop this nonsense in our community. All right, so that's my committee report update. So we'll go to staff announcements.
Mayor, sorry,
Yes.
before we do that, did you want to check if Counselor Carson had a
Oh, he's
committee
back
update?
now. Okay, Council, did you have, Councilor Carson, I was given an update on the Parks and Rec, but did you have an additional update for any committees, or if you want to chime in on what we talked about?
No, I figured you or Heather would update on that
Okay,
Parks and Rec meeting. It was a good meeting and I didn't want to steal anybody's thunder, so.
all right, no worries. Thank you, Council Carson. Okay, Andy?
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. From the rec board, we also covered our capital improvement plan. There's a lot of stuff in there. Some highlights today, we signed a purchase order for a skid steer and masticator that will help with fire mitigation as well. So that's exciting. But that was a lot of the meeting. There were a couple other grants. CPW gave us a equity grant. We partnered with Jen Wild. Brian wrote that grant, but it's going to help with some of our south side negotiations and outreach dealing with the master plan. And I believe it was $14,000 or so. There's a lot in there and I should remember more, but I think that's the key highlights. It was a great meeting and we had just gotten the news and it was nice to celebrate something unexpected and positive out of that. And I'm here tonight to give you a little synopsis of that, of our bridge project. So Heather has a couple visuals. We'll start with those. That first one is just kind of the general area. So we're a little bit north of the ASU ball fields. That's the general one. Next slide, please. And I don't know if you can pan out, maybe you can't. Yeah, good. So if you can see there, that's the location of the bridge. And I know you guys might be getting questions about this project, whether it's cost, why there, what. So I'm gonna start with why there. This is the south edge of 710 Stadium Drive listed at lot 1. Well, that is the narrowest span of the river, believe it or not, in that general vicinity where we felt like it was best connecting our most populous neighborhood there at ASU over to majority of our recreational amenities, golf, not to mention the other side of that, connecting those residents over to ASU. So that's 320 feet there. That's the most cost-effective location because even though it's private property, there's a power line north of there and a longer span of 400 feet. So the cost of the bridge to be that much bigger or moving a power line did not make sense. This is the most cost-effective location, even with property acquisitions involved in that. And we do have letters of intent signed with our property owners here. They're on board with the project. One is an easement. One is we would demolish the little house on lot 1. It'll be a parking lot. Lot 2, we will acquire for the right of way, but we will sell it back to probably the feds, then get the money for that. So that's why it's there. Let's talk about costs. That's been a big one, right? 4.9 million. Of this, 4.77 is federal dollars. 220,000 in local funding, including a $50,000 city contribution. I did some rough math. That's about a 10-time return on investment on the city's $50,000 contribution. Of that 220 local, SLV Go, Great Outdoors, raised $100,000 in private donations. SLV Health is contributing $25,000. 40,000 from Alamosa County, 5,000 from Adams State University, and the city's 50K. That's the 220,000. That covers project readiness, engineering, design, permitting, all this upfront cost. I want to also mention ASU, Adams State has committed to support, from whether it's taking care of the bridge or a pavilion or benches. Mr. Rosengrant's in the audience and he's excited. His leadership team's excited. And he approached me with, well, how can we help? So it's not just their contribution there. They see it as, you know, a campus asset that it's going to be. So that's exciting. All right, why a free span bridge? That ties into cost. It's less impact to flood considerations, not having piers in the river. It's less impact to channel habitat for bird and aquatic species. It's aesthetically more pleasing. It's going to be a beautiful bridge. We've talked a little bit about that. It's easier to construct than engineering and installing steel concrete piers in the middle of the river. Dewatering the river to put those in would have been, you know, a lot of cost. So it's a little bit easier. It's easier to obtain permits, and the longevity of the bridge is better without piers in the river. We learned today we're looking at probably 80-year lifespan of the bridge, and we were satisfied to hear that. Okay, other considerations. The grant award includes 20% contingency. The city may not need the full 4.77 million, but by including contingency, we are protecting the taxpayer from having to absorb any overrun costs associated with inflation or higher than expected bids. The project includes private property acquisitions, public right-of-way, the construction of a parking lot, and an ADA ramp on the west side of the river. So those all add to the cost. This money was from the US DOT RAISE grant, and it is funded by the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law, which was stimulus funding. This money has already been appropriated by Congress, so the bridge does not add any additional burden to the local taxpayer. If the bridge was not built in Alamosa, these federal dollars would be going to a different community. Last thing I'll talk to you and then I'll take questions is our timeline. This is a little bit tentative. Obviously, we've never done something this big and we're excited, but let's go over this. Fall 2022 coming up, design and engineering, do a bid process. Fall 2022 to spring 2023, do the designs and engineering. Spring of 23 to fall of 23, our NEPA, our environmental studies and permitting. Fall of 2023, probably tackle the property acquisitions. Also fall of 2023, do a bid process for construction. We'll have separate bid processes for design, build, and even possibly the permitting could be its own. Finally, construction, fall 2023, spring 2024. So a couple years, hopefully we have an incredible connection as we work on our riparian park to refuge master plan. And while the valley continues to work on trails connecting everything. So I'm excited. I hope I look excited and thank you all. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? Counselor Grego?
I guess I'll start, yeah. Andy, I just want to thank you. We've been trying to do this for about, I want to say over 15 years with Coach Martin down there in Adams State College. We've looked at all kinds of angles. We talked about that area, why it should be built there. And I'm glad you pointed that out. But because of all the partnerships that you have created, you know, that is what made this possible, I think, you know. Back then, we had some arguments and, well, who's gonna pay this and who's gonna pay that? And college was having a little tough time with some monies and, you know, and it would just get put on the shelf. But it goes to say that, you know, all these grants that you guys have put together is because you've created some solid partnerships with people. Everybody gets along. I've heard that Alamosa is a good place to work with people. And it's incredible, you know, something this big is incredible, you know, and like I said, it's been a long time that we've been trying to put this together, and this is going to help not only the city of Alamosa, but Adams State College, because they're runners and stuff, you know, this is going to be one big deal for them. So thank you so much, you and John, you guys, for going out there and doing what you did.
Thank you. Yeah, John deserves the lion's share of credit. He wrote most of this grant, so let's be sure to recognize that.
Thank you, Counselor Grego. Counselor Daniel, then Counselor Henson.
Thank you. Yeah, Andy, this is super exciting. I'm really excited about it. So thank you. Are there any concerns about the property acquisition?
I don't think there's concerns. We've sat down, we have letters of intent. It isn't a guarantee. But so far, you know, they're supportive of the concept and we're talking market values. We're not trying to pin them to numbers and it seems to work. It seems to be a win-win,
Nice.
really.
When I saw where it was going to be, I didn't realize that the housing would be, I was like, I don't know how we're going to park there. But no, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really cool thing. And as someone who uses those trails relatively often, it'll be really cool to go over there. That's nice.
One benefit of that location and the owner realizes it is there's been accidents there at that turn. Cars have slid into that house. So he understands that getting rid of that house, and that was part of this grant, was selling safety, that, you know, it will improve safety over there. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Daniel. Counselor Hensley.
So this really ties in. I was at the Main Street meeting and Aaron Miltenberger actually commented from hearsay is that he had a couple people from outside of Alamosa. I want to say Salida, but I could be wrong where they were from. But that idea that Alamosa is the new place to be. And we're starting to get such a reputation for being that place. And things like this, having this bridge, all of the different grants, having when we had the meeting last week where I forget, was it Dola or whoever came in and said that what great things we're doing with the grant money and that we're really getting the most bang out of our buck, you might say, and how our downtown is looking. And it's really neat and it's a pride to be part of this. And I think that connectivity and everything that's happening, but it's like it's all snowballing, that everything's starting to really come together and make that happen. And Alamosa is the new it. So it's
Nice
cool.
to hear that.
Thank you, and thank you, councils, for your comments. Andy, I realized that, last week when we were all talking about the grant, I knew it was a pretty big deal, okay? And it is a great big deal. It's a talk of the city. It's becoming the talk of the state. I just want you to know that on Monday, Senator Bennett called me personally to let me know that it's talk of things that's going on in the country. So great job to you and your team and the effort that the city is doing. I was really thrilled to receive the phone call, and he wanted me to personally reach out to you and your team to let you know that he appreciates all the work that you're doing and making sure that we bring about that connectivity in our community and people are hearing about Alamosa. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then Counselor, I didn't see Counselor Carson. I'm sorry. There you go, Counselor Carson. And one more thing before I go to Counselor Carson, so I'll finish my other comment. The Alamosa High School Athletic Director, AD, Mr. Melgoza, he called as well, left a detailed message on my voicemail message. I called him back. He wanted to let you and your team know how much he really appreciates the collaboration with Parks and Rec and Alamosa High School. And it's a huge deal with him as well. And he mentioned nothing but good things about the first game that was played. And is really pleased with all the efforts that you all are doing as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so now Counselor Carson.
I just wanted to say good job, Andy. It's an awesome spot. That's on the 16th hole. Is that where it comes in? Or you know where that's at?
16 or 7.
Or is
Yeah,
it gonna be right in the middle of them?
Yeah.
It's an awesome spot. I just wanted to reiterate what everybody said. Good job. And you guys are kicking butt over there. Kudos to John as well. And it was a great meeting at Parks and Rec. They put on a pretty good meeting, but I didn't want to steal anybody's thunder, like I said. So good job. And I look forward to the bridge, as does everyone else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Carson. Okay, we're good. Thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate the update.
I just had two other quick updates under staff. And the first one is we did make an offer to an individual for our co-responder program, and he did accept. So the first day will be August 29th. We're really, really excited. It's someone who already lives in town. Tim Dillette, did I say that correct? So we're really excited. We believe he's a great fit, not only for this being a new program, but working with our law enforcement. And after several months of interviews and really good people interested, but just maybe one reason why either they probably weren't going to be happy or being a one-person job for a new program might have been a little too much. So we're really excited to get it up and going. And then the other is some of our memories don't work pre-COVID, but I need you to think a little bit. Back in 2018, 2019, we had some work sessions on our sign code, and we had Deacon showing us all those pictures of some are the different categories like obsolete or illegal, or I don't know all the categories. And we talked about we were going to start rolling out some enforcement and all of that. COVID hit And we didn't feel like that was probably the most appropriate time to have businesses focused on their signs and spending funding there. We've waited a few years, but we're getting ready to do a soft rollout now of that sign ordinance. And so we're gonna be making the nice contact with Kathy first. So they will get a Kathy contact first, and then they'll get a nice letter from the office. We still do have that line item you guys have approved already in the budget, that if they're willing to do a certain type of vinyl design or something to at least, so it's not obsolete or whatever category, there can be a cost share. But I just wanted to let you know that we are gonna start doing some notification from a sign code enforcement perspective.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brooks. Okay. That, Counselor Carson's hands up.
So Heather, do we still do the facade grants for businesses, and do they tie in together? If we're still doing the facade grant, can they also get help with the signage, or can they not cross, or do they cross, I guess? Can you enlighten me on
There
that?
is that opportunity as well, so I'm glad you remembered that. It depends on kind of the type of signage, but there is that opportunity as well for the facade grant. And we'll make them aware of that. But then there's also that specific line item from a cost share perspective. So there's some ability to help.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Carson. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, and that is consent calendar B. Counselor Grego?
I'll make a motion, we approve consent calendar B.
I'll second.
And we just want to clarify, because when I open my agenda, it lists 2 items, and when Eric opens his, it lists just Society Hall, which is all that you can approve as Society Hall. So we just want to make sure it's clear for the minutes that the only item that's on consent calendar B is the special event permit for Society Hall.
Modification of premises.
That too.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Please start voting.
Carson, yes.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Carson.
And the motion carried unanimously, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Okay, that brings us to the last item on the agenda for tonight, council comments. Have any council comments at this time? Counselor Grego?
I'll start, on August the 27th here, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday, the San Luis Valley Immigration Resource Center is celebrating their 20-year anniversary. They've been in existence since 1987, but they fell under a different group, the San Luis Valley Christian Community Service. And let me have you hand this over to Councilor Brett. I gave some information. And what I wanted to do is have council maybe acknowledge, what they've done over the 20 years or since 1987. Their mission statement is to connect and empower immigrants with resources to achieve legal documents, fulfill their economic needs, and integrate into the communities. So this is something I think that they've been working on for a lot of years, and I think just some kind of recognition. I talked to the mayor, and I've talked to, I wanted to see if council would be okay if we would do some kind of recognition, something to let them know that we appreciate what they've done with our migrants and our non-English speaking people.
If council's interested, we can definitely have the clerk's office prepare a proclamation for your next meeting on the 7th. We just need content for it.
What I wanted to do was just maybe prepare something and then just on the 27th, let them have it,
So that would be up to you guys to coordinate. But we
Yeah.
would still just need you to send us content for the proclamation, and we can get it in the right format and get the mayor to sign it, and then whoever's doing the presentation can.
And you're all invited. It's at the Knights of Columbus. Like I said, it's August 27th from 4 to 8. So I just thought I'd bring that up, and I'll give you one of those two so you can see what the program's all about. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Daniel,
Thank you, Mayor.
you're welcome.
So I am really excited about kids going back to school, so we need to be ready for that. The speed limits changing, all of those things, seeing more students on Adams State's campus, all of that stuff. So just being ready. I also wanted to let Andy and John know that I have had now several people see the commercial from the Colorado Lottery that we had a while ago, and really talked to me about what is happening in Alamosa, like how are these things going, all of those things. And so it's been fun to talk to them about what we're doing from other cities, not even just from here. So it's been really cool to have some connections with others who are like, hey, I saw this thing on, I forget what the channel, like the PBS channel. And so they're really excited about that. And so I've been able to have some really good conversations with some people from other cities that wouldn't have happened without that commercial. So, or whatever they have called it. So that's really cool. The other thing, and I know, Harry, I know we're working on it and I know it's hard, but the drainage is just killing people. So I know that it is, sorry, that was probably an inappropriate thing. So it's not actually killing people. But I know people are struggling and having challenges with all of this rain. I do think there are many people who understand what is happening and that our drains are doing the best that they can do, but I also think it's something that can be really challenging. And I haven't seen, but I also haven't been looking. Have we been putting press releases out at all about how we're handling this?
Yeah, we hadn't. We can try to be creative. Part of it is because it really is dependent on the location. And so it's, I can do a press release that's somewhat similar to the email I sent this morning. I might be able to pull in a few locations where we know there's specifically something failing, and that type of thing, but it's hard to be any more specific than that. So
I really think people just need to know maybe that we are doing something. We're not, like, it's not that our drains aren't work. You know what I mean? I think
Okay.
just something to share with folks that we're doing the best that we can do. And this is a lot of rain. I mean, it's not been a typical kind of thing. So really just letting people know we're not doing things, I think could be helpful.
okay.
Thank you, Counselor Daniel. Counselor Carson?
So, yeah, I'm not at all gonna try to beat a dead horse, but, and I know that wasn't appropriate, so I'm sorry. The drainage is a huge issue. I want to give kudos first. Good news first. I am very appreciative of State Street. It is kicking butt. You guys are moving along great. And I'm happy with that progress. However, I do have one concern. The drainage is an issue all over the city. I understand that. City Market was pretty interesting this afternoon. But the new corner of State and 8th Street right there, where that's all brand new infrastructure, there's an issue there. The water was probably, I'd say, at a foot and a half in a lot of places. I saw some cars just sinking. So I just wanted to put it out there, being that that's a new stretch. Maybe take a look at it and see if something isn't failing in that new build, because it was really flooded today, and I know the rain came quick. So again, I understand the limitations of the system, but that being like technically the newest part of town as far as new pipes and all the new sewer being laid, I was just going to see if you guys could check that and make sure it's not just something as simple as it being clogged, because it is pretty new, but it was pretty bad there. But again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to knock the progress. It's really kicking butt and moving along way faster than I ever expected. So thank you guys. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Counselor Carson.
And I didn't know, Harry, were you aware of that area and might know what the cause is, or do you need some time to look into it? Counselor Carson kind of left it either way for you, but if you knew of a potential issue, it might be good to address it.
It's right where it dipped. Remember where the pavement had been cut, like right there, it drops in, and on the corner, it would be the northeast corner of State and 8th. I mean, it was deep across the whole thing, but it was just, I was pretty amazed at how deep it got right there. So that is a pretty deep hole anyway. So if we could address that, because that one got really dangerous really quick, and not to be dumb or anything, but Counselor Daniels did make a point. It is pretty precarious, and we don't want anybody getting hurt.
No, I think it's a great comment. We'll take a look at it, make sure there isn't an issue that we might have created, but I think the bigger issue that we have is State Avenue pipe work is all new, but it ties into an existing older line to the
Yeah.
east to Ladue. And so we have the capacity in State Avenue for a normal rainstorm, but it still goes into the older system that goes down to Ladue and into the river. So there's kind of a choke point right there.
And I figured as much. And again, I'm really not trying to be harsh at all. It's beautiful. The street looks great. You guys have done a great job blending the old with the new and keeping it as pristine as possible, especially with some of those really old trees. I really appreciate that. But I just wanted to point that out there, that being your newest spot, maybe take a look at it and see if it's not something simple.
We will.
And then I didn't say this as eloquently in the email, but Harry and his crew have been driving around looking at these spots. And so some of them, it's a choke point like that, a newer system going into one that's very constrained. And one of it might be part of it's, there's debris clogging something or something like that. But it's a good opportunity as we need to start identifying upcoming stormwater projects. If it's not a failure that we want to try to get in there a little more quickly and it's not too expensive, it's, fixing a pump or something like that. But if it's a bigger project, it's helping us kind of start identifying what projects we need to be getting into the CIP. And I know just today, Harry was working with Lisa on trying to move up one of those stormwater projects that this storm has helped identify needing to get moved up. And so we'll continue. So all of these comments, Counselor Carson and Daniel, are good from communicating with the public, but then also just, we are kind of creating a list, and this is telling us where some of the major pinch points are. Is that fair to say, Harry?
Yeah, very accurate. I think comments are certainly welcome because we can't get around the city and see every intersection. So, any input that we get is helping us establish where we need to focus.
On the positive side, it has picked up the kayaking at the city market parking lot.
We don't need to activate the river. We're activating the streets.
Yeah, all we need to do is get a couple people on the standing paddle boards out there. It'll be awesome. Yeah, but I can't complain about rain, guys. Today was the first time in a long time I had seen our water system and our landscaping at the district. It was actually flowing water. So the rain came fast and brutal. So it is not a knock on the system at all. I just wanted to point it out. So thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you, Council Carson. Thank you, Harry. Okay, looks like I'll wrap things up. I want to make a note for the records on our next meeting, September the 7th, 2022. I will have to attend that meeting via Zoom. I have a work-related conference that I will be attending in Washington, D.C. So Mayor Pro Tem Daniel will be running the meeting here on that day. I want to thank everyone who came out to the Beat the Heat activities and festivities. It was really a good, huge, successful event again. It's really grown over the years, and thank you for all the staff for making sure that everything was where it needed to be, and thank you for the security that was in place as well. Great turnout as well for all the people who participated in that event. I also want to send out kudos to our city manager, Heather Brooks. A lot of times you hear Heather takes a lot of heat from different people in the community, unnecessary heat, unwarranted heat. So whenever it's a time to say something good and nice, I like to be able to do that. Yesterday, Heather did a wonderful job attending the CHAFA, Colorado Housing Finance Authority's listening engagement. She really shared a lot of helpful information with the people who make decisions with funding opportunities for communities like ours. And she presented in such a way to where the director, as well as other leaders in the organization, had nothing but pleasing things to say about her and her delivery. In addition to that, she found a way to make it out to participate in a county event at the airport for the ribbon cutting, to make sure that the city was supported in their efforts, along with Councilor Griego, who was there as well. So to let them know that we're buying into what they're doing as well out there at the airport. And it means a lot when the community could see city council members, also the city manager taking a leadership role and being active out in the community. So if you all don't mind, just join me in giving her a round of applause. With her being introvert, she doesn't like that, so it's okay. All right, good. So,
Mayor, I do have one last thing I wanted to share with council.
sure, go ahead.
We are still moving forward with the process for replacing, our fire chief. And this week we are doing interviews through Zoom. We had 16 applicants. We're doing Zoom interviews for 8 to determine who we want to bring in for in-person. And so just wanted to share that that process is happening. And Dawn is fully engaged in helping us as we move forward. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, could I ask one more question too, please?
Sure. Go ahead. I'll go with Counselor Carson, then Counselor Griego.
Hey, Heather, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I know we just saw each other yesterday, but has there been any word on did you get a response from Iron Horse at all if they want to engage with you guys to try to fix things?
So I have not sent that email yet. I had to
Okay.
get all my budget items to Lisa today. So that was my big push for today, but I do plan to send an email. And what Counselor Carson is talking about is, as you know, the Iron Horse isn't opened. We have significant concerns that it could be another month or more, that maybe there's a gap between management that's in another state and what's going on, boots on the ground. But it's impacting our residents, and people are almost becoming homeless because they were anticipating being able to move into this, and some might actually be becoming homeless. Another staff communication doesn't seem to be, I mean, staff's been reaching out regularly on how can we help you get this done, and that doesn't seem to be working. So I'm gonna use my city manager title to see if I can get a Zoom meeting and try to get this moving forward better.
Sounds good, Heather, and I personally, if you want to add to the conversation, I've already made at least 3 phone calls to Iron Horse this past week on behalf of people who would like to move in. And unfortunately, I haven't received not one return phone call. So we're at a point right now where we have to go to the next level and trying to reach out to them and let them know the importance of this issue.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you,
You're
Heather.
welcome.
Thank you for
Thank
reaching
you.
out to
Thank
them.
you, too.
We appreciate it. Like I say, I've gotten a lot of calls on it too, and the community really needs it. It's a needed resource, and so thank you guys for pressing on that. Appreciate it.
All right, you're welcome, Counselor Carson. Counselor Griego.
Thank you, Mayor. One last comment. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned the ribbon cutting over at the airport. I sat on that airport board for a lot of years when it was both city and county, and to get a new carrier in there and a new rent-a-car that people were really, well, they were enthused. And then that fuel depot that we were trying to repair that for Jesus. We were in violation for I don't know how many years. And finally, they were able to put it together, and it's come a long ways. They've done a lot of stuff out there that, you know, from the new building and stuff, and it's a first-class operation out there now. So
Thank you, Counselor Griego, and thank you again for attending yesterday as well. Okay, if we have no further business, this meeting is officially adjourned.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody. Thank you, Counselor Carson. Have a good one.
You guys too.
Okay, thank you.